The dangers of vitamin D overconsumption, side effects and proper intake methods. With growing interest in immunity, the number of people taking vitamin D supplements has significantly increased. However, vitamin D should be consumed carefully. While it was once considered a very safe supplement with few side effects, new adverse effects are being reported as more research is conducted. Many people might be taking vitamin D without even realizing that some of their symptoms are side effects of the supplement. Today, I'll explain why vitamin D can be dangerous, discuss the side effects you should be aware of, and share the correct way to take it. After watching this, you'll discover that vitamin D may be an overrated supplement. In a previous video, I talked about a massive lobbying effort by the vitamin D industry that was covered by the New York Times. The prominent American physician Michael Holick was said to have published studies that exaggerated the need for vitamin D. If you're interested in vitamin D, you've probably heard about blood vitamin D levels. This value, which shows how much vitamin D is in our bodies, can be checked with a blood test at a hospital. The current widely used standard for normal vitamin D levels is 30 to 100 nanograms per milliliter. According to this standard, levels below 30 are considered deficient, and levels above 100 are excessive. However, this standard was established by Michael Holick, who was found to have received lobbying funds, and the American Endocrine Society, where he is influential. It's not an official government standard. By setting the normal vitamin D level at 30 or higher, they instantly made 80% of Americans and 97% of Koreans vitamin D deficient. As a result, sales of vitamin D supplements and deficiency tests increased tenfold and fivefold, respectively, in just a few years. However, contrary to Holick's opinion, a different conclusion is being reached in various studies. Research in Denmark, the US, and Australia showed that people with higher vitamin D levels tended to have a higher mortality rate. A Canadian study revealed that people who took high-dose vitamin D daily had lower bone density than those who took 400 IU. A study in Switzerland even found that the high-dose vitamin D group experienced twice as many falls. While there's more research to share, I'll skip it as most show similar trends. It turns out that even when serum vitamin D levels only rise to 40 to 50, the incidence of various diseases like mortality, heart attack, cancer, and osteoporosis increases. The US National Cancer Institute recommends keeping vitamin D levels between 20 and 30, suggesting that levels above 50 could be dangerous. According to this standard, about half of Koreans already have enough vitamin D in their bodies, which directly contradicts the 30 to 100 range proposed by Michael Holick and the American Endocrine Society. The reason why health worsens when vitamin D levels get too high is still inconclusive. While it's easy to find the opinion that excessive vitamin D intake raises blood calcium levels and causes calcification, side effects like increased mortality are still being reported even when vitamin D levels are around 50, where calcification does not easily occur. Since vitamin D has so many different functions in the body, more research is needed to pinpoint the exact cause. Regardless of the reason, it's clear that you should be careful to prevent your vitamin D levels from getting too high. So, how can you tell if your blood vitamin D levels are excessive? You can get a blood test at the hospital, but there are also some signs you might notice beforehand. The first is muscle weakness. In menopausal women taking high-dose vitamin D, a general weakening of muscles was observed, along with an increase in certain metabolic substances like creatinine-derived carnitine. In the same vein, people taking high-dose vitamin D tended to have more falls. If you've recently found it harder to climb stairs or feel weaker than usual, it could be a sign that your vitamin D levels are too high. Insomnia can also be a sign of too much vitamin D. High-dose vitamin D intake has been shown to significantly reduce melatonin, a hormone that regulates our sleep cycle. One study found that the group taking vitamin D experienced worse sleep quality and a greater tendency to seek out sleeping pills. If your cholesterol levels have recently increased suddenly, you might also suspect an overdose of vitamin D. Several studies have reported cases where high-dose vitamin D intake increased total cholesterol and triglycerides. If you see a sudden rise in cholesterol without any changes to your diet or lifestyle, check if you've recently increased your vitamin D intake. Additionally, when vitamin D levels get too high, blood calcium levels also rise, which can lead to indigestion, nausea, constipation, stomach pain, fatigue, loss of appetite, frequent urination, and even kidney stones and kidney disease. However, these side effects usually only occur with very high doses, tens of thousands of IU per day, making them far less common than the side effects mentioned earlier. The side effects like muscle weakness, insomnia, and increased cholesterol might seem surprising. You might be thinking, but a YouTuber said vitamin D strengthens muscles, helps with sleep, lowers cholesterol, and prevents cancer. Why is this video saying the opposite? The beneficial effects you've heard about only occur when a person with a vitamin D deficiency takes a proper dose. If a person whose vitamin D levels are already normal takes a high dose, the beneficial effects will likely reverse and harm your health. So, let's look at how to take vitamin D properly. The most accurate way is to regularly check your blood vitamin D levels at a hospital and adjust the dose, but that's not always necessary. The US National Cancer Institute says healthy people don't need to check their vitamin D levels. You can maintain proper levels by following the methods I'm about to share. Everyone knows that our skin produces vitamin D when exposed to sunlight. So, if you get enough sun regularly, you don't necessarily need to take supplements. During the summer, if you expose your face, arms, and hands to the sun for about 30 minutes, 2 or more times a week, you're likely getting enough vitamin D. However, Korea doesn't get very strong sunlight, and if you wear sunscreen, it can be difficult to produce enough vitamin D from the sun alone. Assuming you don't get enough vitamin D from sunlight, if you've never taken vitamin D before or have stopped for several months, you can start with a high dose of 4,000 to 5,000 IU for the first 3 months to quickly raise your levels. After that, switch to a consistent dose of 1,000 to 2,000 IU. Generally, taking 1,000 IU consistently is known to maintain vitamin D levels in the 20 to 30 range. However, there's a personal difference, so if you have a high body weight or poor dietary habits, choosing 2,000 IU might be better. If you know your vitamin D levels from a blood test, you can calculate the dose more accurately. It's generally known that every 100 IU of vitamin D supplement can raise your blood level by about 1. So, if your blood test showed a level of 10, taking 1,000 IU of vitamin D consistently can raise your level to 25. However, the higher the dose, the lower the absorption efficiency. If your blood test result was 5, you'd need to take about 5,000 IU daily to reach 25, not 2,000 IU. The hospital that conducted the test will also provide detailed guidance on dosage based on your results. Also, be sure to check if vitamin D is included in your other supplements. Many recent multivitamins contain vitamin D, ranging from 400 IU to as high as 1,000 to 2,000 IU. Be careful not to take an excessively high amount of vitamin D. You must also remember the best time to take vitamin D. Since vitamin D is fat-soluble, it's absorbed much better when taken with a meal that contains fat rather than on an empty stomach. Always take it with or immediately after a meal. Remember that vitamin D works best when it's taken in a balanced way, not too much and not too little. That's all for today. If this was helpful, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell. Thank you.